If you haven't been here before, the restrooms are all the way out and around the corner there. Welcome to Campaign for Liberty's meeting for September of 2014. How many people is this is your first Campaign for Liberty meeting? All right, wow. All right, we had this one specially for you because all our regular folks didn't show up. So anyway, we're used to having 75 to 100 folks here, so this is really kind of a back-to-school meeting, I guess. But my name is Lowell Sheets, and I'm just your MC tonight. I want to, on behalf of everybody that's on the steering committee, I want to welcome you here tonight. We are going to open the meeting with prayer and a pledge to the flag, so if you would stand together with me, we can do that together. Dear Father, we thank you for your many and wonderful blessings. We thank you for who you are, we praise you for who you are, and we thank you for all the things that you've done for us, allowing us to even be born in this time period, in this free country, and blessing us with such blessings that most of the world throughout history has never, ever known. And we pray that you would make us worthy of these blessings. Help us to maintain these things for our posterity. Help us to honor you and bless you, to show your grace and love to those that we come in contact with, and to fight for the liberty that you've delivered to us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. We've got some great speakers lined up tonight, but I just want to give you a quick introduction to Campaign for Liberty, especially for those who are new. Campaign for Liberty folks want to take over the world and leave you alone. We really truly believe in the principles of liberty, the founding principles of our country, the principles of individual liberty, constitutional government, sound money, free markets, and a non-interventionist foreign policy by means of educational and political efforts. And we basically came to be at the end of Ron Paul's first campaign for president, where he turned his campaign coffers over and created this nonprofit organization, Campaign for Liberty. And we're all over the country. That's what we stand for. That's what we do. We do it here on a very local basis. We are also very nonprofit. Tonight we're going to be extremely nonprofit. Our cost for this meeting room tonight is $250. So we do take up a we're like Baptists, or I don't know, I was a Baptist. Anyway, we take up an offering whenever we can. But we really have no overhead except for these kind of meetings and the emails that we do and the letters that we do. And so there's nobody on staff here. So everybody that you see is a volunteer. So during a little bit later time in the night, we will take up a little collection to help us pay for this room and the kind of things that we do. So we would ask that you give generously, and you're under no obligation. So anyway, I'm going to get right to our first speaker. We started a little bit late while the crowd developed. And our first speaker is going to be talking about local politics. We're going to be talking a lot about local politics today, and then some educational issues that are local and national. And our first speaker is one of our most hardest working steering committee members. You see her every meeting. She brought the food, so she deserves a double round of applause, I think, for the snacks. And she is going to be talking about the county executive raise, what they're doing in our county, behind our backs, in front of our backs, in front of our backs, in front of our noses. Vicki Seitzinger. So give her a round of applause.
All right, so how many people here were aware that the county council was acting on some legislation to give themselves and the county executive a raise? Who was aware of that? All right, so quite a few of you, that's great. Just to bring you up to those folks that weren't aware, to bring you up to date on what's happened. The county council had put forward legislation that was sponsored by Marian Lasanti. She's the council person in District F, and Billy Boniface, the president. Both of them are leaving the council. Billy Boniface, for past years, yet unknown, although we speculate on certain positions he might end up in. And Marian Lasanti is running for state delegate in Harford County. I think it's District 34A. I can't remember if anybody knows. 34. Anyway, there were two pieces of legislation, Bill 1428 and Bill 1427. Bill 1428 was proposing to give the county council members and the county council president a big, fat, juicy raise. And 1427 was something similar for the county executive. This being an election year, politically it was very tough for them to give themselves a raise, although they really wanted to. Most of them were in support of it publicly. The ones that weren't in support of it publicly said, well, I'm not really quite sure which way I want to go. And the bottom line is that bill was pulled, not because it was the right thing to do, but because, as President Boniface said, I just didn't have the votes. Politics. 1427, however, was passed. So, starting with our next county executive, and it's, I don't even want to say speculated, it's pretty much confirmed that that will be Barry Glassman. His salary will go from the current $90,000 a year, and it's actually a little bit more. Although the county executive's salary is $90,000 a year, the current county executive actually receives about $105 due to CPI, an index CPI raise that he gets annually. But he's now going to get, the next county executive is going to get about $130,000 a year. This is like a 35% increase in salary. Has anybody had that lately? Is anybody in a position where they can just vote themselves and their friends a raise? That'd be kind of nice, don't you think? So the current county executive, David Craig, was very much against both of these bills from the beginning. Just to let you know that at the public hearing for 1427, there was never a public hearing, I don't believe, for 1428 because it was pulled. But for 1427, there was a throng of citizens loudly and enthusiastically arguing against the raise. I'm sure you can imagine for the county executive. One person spoke on behalf of it, so I would imagine that Mary Ann and Billy had to look far and wide for that one person. But anyway, it was passed. David Craig promised that he would veto it, and indeed, he has been true to his promise. Just before I came here tonight, I got a message on the Dagger, and if any of you read the Dagger, here's the letter from David Craig. He has vetoed it. In anticipation of that veto, the county council, even before the veto was announced, the county council knew it was coming down the pike, and they have already scheduled a special session, an emergency special session that President Boniface has called for Thursday, this coming Thursday, the 25th. And it is for the singular purpose of addressing this veto. Will they let it stand, or will they override it? We know, I don't know about you, but I suspect that pretty much everybody in this room would like them to override it. Couple of things we want to do, and then I can give you a little bit more history on this. How many people here would be willing to show up at the council chambers at 212 South Bond Street this coming Thursday at 7:30 with some signs, with a bullhorn, maybe with some media in tow? Cindy, maybe with some media in tow? For a public show of dissatisfaction with the current state of affairs, and to encourage the county council to reconsider their folly and perhaps undo what they've already done. How many people can commit to being there? I'm raising my hand. I can't. I will be out of town. I tried to talk my husband into it. He said, no way, you're coming with me, sweetheart. But how many people? I want to see some hands. I see one. I see two. I see, do I see three? I see three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10's not enough, folks. How many people will commit to bringing a friend? That will make it 20. Okay, so now we have 21. Now we have 22. Do I hear 23? How many people will commit to bringing 2 friends? We need to have 30, 40, maybe 50 people here. I don't know if you guys remember, but when they were trying to redistrict the schools back when I first moved to Harford County, we had that place ringed. It was like the Alamo. I mean, it was, the county council chambers were under siege, peacefully under siege. So before I leave and before you leave, I'm going to be collecting names and phone numbers, and somebody will be getting in touch with you about you know, coming to this to remind you, can you bring a sign? And there will be no public comment, but you can certainly go in and listen. Now, I spoke with Mr. Boniface's office earlier in the week, and at the time, I was told that this would not be videotaped, as all of the county council sessions are. I spoke with Pam Meister. She's the county administrator, and you know, I mean, these people have a job to do. Mr. Boniface has agreed to bring in Comcast, so it will be videotaped, so we'll be able to watch it, and hopefully that promise will come to fruition, and I have no reason to believe that it won't. But if anybody, you know, wants to bring their little handheld audio, you know, your little cell phone, you know, so you can capture what is said. I was also told by Mr. Boniface that this meeting will take 5 minutes. So what does that tell you, folks? The fix is in. There's not going to be a lot of discussion. There's not going to be some consideration or soul searching. I suspect they already know what they're going to do. But it would be very good for them to see to see a show of force out there. And they will, I mean, they need to remember this. Chad Schroeds and Joe Woods don't have any opponents in their districts. So, you know, they're going to get elected no matter what. But Jim McMahon is running against a pretty popular Democrat. Not that I want Gene Casimir to win, but, you know, Jim McMahon should be in fear for his political life because of this. Dion Guthrie gave a gutless abstention. He didn't want to come down one way or the other. And Mr. Slutsky was the only no vote on this legislation. So anyway, the county council would love to vote great big fat juicy raises for themselves. Couldn't quite get away with it, but they did one for their good buddy, Barry Glassman. The second part of our action item is I've passed out letters for each of your, they're on each of your tables. And it would be great if you, actually that's not the letter, here's a letter. It would be great if each of you could sign these. I have a lot of extra, I have 150 because we usually have about 75 or 80 folks here. It would be great if you can take some extras home and get them signed, your neighbors, your coworkers, your friends. Essentially what this says is county council, feel free to read it, and for those of you that can find the typo in the last paragraph, feel free to correct it. You can put your name, your address. You can add something to this if you want. I'll be collecting them and somebody will be delivering them to the county council office hopefully tomorrow. If not, when you come, you can bring them with you and you can deliver them to the county council on Thursday night. We need to let these folks know that we do not like the way they're growing government. By the way, the county council budget has grown by 65% during the last 2 county council administrations, and the last actually was more like 6 or 7 years. But 65%, folks. They've taken on a full-time lawyer, they hired full-time legislative aides for each one of them, which many could argue that they needed, but you know, isn't part of their job to be researching a lot of this stuff? Full-time legislative aides, full-time lawyer, a full-time auditor. They, I don't know if you remember 2 years ago when they gave the county administrator, Pam Meister, a huge raise, which caused a huge hullabaloo, and they had to go back. What an embarrassment. What an embarrassment to put this woman in front of the public and basically have to make her explain why she was getting a raise that they gave her, and then they took the raise back. Do you remember a few years ago when the county executive wanted to give a bonus to every single county employee because there was a surplus? Personally, I didn't think it was a good idea. Back then, the county council cut that bonus in half. But You know, so they were willing to they were willing to cut the bonuses for other county employees, but they're perfectly willing to give themselves and their friends a big juicy raise. And Mr. McMahon, I believe it was, said, well, all of us should have raises. All the deprived, the teachers, the police, everybody that's gone without should get a raise, but you have to start somewhere. Well, it doesn't start at the top. You don't serve yourself. When you are a public servant, you do not serve yourself first. So anyway, if anybody has any questions, yes, ma'am?
Can these letters be emailed to the
You-
county council?
You could email it. I'd like to take them with me when I leave, but if you'd rather email it, you can.
For myself or the people on here, there's several people I know would be interested in signing this, but how do we get them to you?
Well, if you come on Thursday night, you could bring them directly, to whatever. But yes, that's a great idea. You can take some extras and email them, or scan them and fax them if you have those capabilities. All of you should be getting an email from Hartford Campaign for Liberty tonight talking about this. If you're on our email list, you should be getting this email sometime tonight, and on that email will be the phone numbers and the email addresses of all of the county council members, including Mr. Boniface. Mr. Slutsky is not on that list because he did vote no, and I have no reason to believe he's going to change his vote tomorrow or Thursday. Yes, ma'am, sir. I have a contact and I can't see. Mr. Glassman said he didn't know about this. I don't. Excuse me?
Can he stop it?
I don't think he can stop it.
He could publicly say no.
He could publicly say he doesn't like it. He hasn't done that. He's not in a position to, that's not his role as county executive to interfere in the legislative process of, and he's not even county executive yet. He's just running for county executive. However, it is widely expected that Mr. Boniface will be Mr. Glassman's next chief of staff. So there's a connection there. Mr. Glassman said he knew nothing about it. That was what I read publicly about this, and I don't like to call people untruthful unless I know for sure they're not.
What time Thursday?
I'm sorry, 7:30 Thursday at 212 South Bond Street. That'll be an email that you get. I probably should have had this written down for you. Does everybody have something that they can write this down on? 7:30, 212 South Bond Street, the County Council Chambers. You better be there early. If it's at 7:30, I'd be there at 7 so you can, march around and make a big scene, get the horns going. Try to make some signs so when people drive by, they know what it is you're there for. You'll get a lot of horn beats. Yes, ma'am?
This is AM or PM?
PM, I'm sorry. 7:30 p.m., but try to get there early. I understand that it's going to be a short meeting, so it'll probably be an early night for you. Yes, Mr. Bates?
If these people are working for us, why doesn't it go up for referendum, let everybody vote on it?
I believe that salary and tax issues are not, cannot be put to referendum. There is certain legislation that cannot be put to referendum. Now, I don't know if you remember 2 years ago, there was a bill that allowed county officials, elected officials, who were leaving office to go directly into the county employment. So let's say you're county council president and you're not running for office and you would like to take a county position. 2 or 3 years ago, I think it was 2 years ago, this was on referendum. 2 years ago, you couldn't do that. There was a law that said you had to wait at least 2 years before you could take a paid position with a county. The county council, under the leadership of Mr. Boniface, undid that bill. They had their reasons for it, and they stated them publicly. Quite honestly, that was another demonstration that they don't necessarily work for us. They change the laws, they work the laws in ways that benefit themselves. Yes, Scott?
So perhaps one thing that people that are here could do is you could also contact Mr. Glassman and ask him if this raise is voted, would he publicly donate that part of his salary, new salary, to the charity, of his choice in order to stand in solidarity with the teachers and the sheriffs and everybody else that haven't had raises, and that all the people in the private sector that have gone years with not only not having raises, but having had their salary cut, their hours cut, their insurance cut. So maybe something to ask the county, potential future county executive, that if would he take a stand on this and against it, and if so, if it is voted, if he would donate that $30,000 to charity.
Mr. McMahon, when he was justifying his support for the county council raise, said that that's what he would do. And quite honestly, that moves me not. If I want to give my money, why should they be in a position to give my money to charity?
I agree with you.
I would like to give my own money to the charity of my choice. The charity of my choice might very well be myself. So, all right. Hope to see a lot of you there on Thursday. I won't see you, but Scott will see you.
Thanks, Vicki. There are a lot of local issues that need addressing, and if we don't address them, basically they often just don't get addressed at all. And there's something big brewing, been brewing for a long time, and our illustrious and one of my favorite speakers here at Campaign for Liberty, Dave Pridgen, is going to be talking to us about the Cultural Arts Center. Who could oppose a Cultural Arts Center? Dave Pridgen.
Okay, so the Cultural Arts Center. How many people are aware that the government of Baltimore City is in the hotel business? They own a huge hotel that loses millions of dollars per year. And the government of Harford County is about to go into the play business. And they're going to lose hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars of your tax money per year. And what this has to do is with building the Cultural Arts Center on Route 24. And it's going to include a 1,200-seat theater, a 400-seat theater, a 100-seat theater, a 225-person rehearsal hall, a 125-person rehearsal hall, and the list goes on and on. So you might picture, children running around in tutus, and, this is a good thing, but that's not what this is about. This is about a business. They're going to rent to people like the Susquehanna Symphony. And they're going to have a rental in the 1,200-seat theater. I extracted all this from their business plan. For that nightly performance, they'll charge them $3,000. For the setup of the hall the day before, they'll charge them $1,500. For the teardown the following day, they'll charge them $1,200. So before the Susquehanna Symphony can even play for a one-night performance, they're going to have to come up with $5,700, not even counting the rental of the rehearsal rooms. And suppose a group like ours wanted to rent a room there, and we wanted to have food. According to their business plan, per person we'd be charged $16 for breakfast, $25 for lunch, a reception. Reception's where you stand around a little round table and eat an hors d'oeuvre, $35. A dinner buffet, $65 per person if it's on a weeknight, but if it's on a weekend night, it's $85. And what's it going to cost? Sure, this is going to benefit all the people of Harford County. We're all going to be able to afford to go, right? According to the business plan, for the plays, if you buy into the series, meaning you buy the entire series, it'll only be $60 per show. The musical performances, if you buy the entire block, will only be $55 per show. The dance series tickets will only be $40 per show, again, if you buy the whole block. So this kind of gives you a little bit of an idea what we're talking about here. And oh, by the way, if you want a Wi-Fi connection while you're in the building, that'll be $15. And we've got projected salaries a year of $2,153,062 in salaries and benefits. So when you're here at Cultural Arts Center and you're thinking of kids going and doing plays and everything, that's not what this is about. All right? Now, we really, unfortunately, got to get into some background here, because this thing is basically set up that it's going to get shoved down our throats, and it's important to know the backdrop. And up to this point, the county councils had nothing to do with this. This has strictly been David Craig. So I'm going to start with reading an article from the Aegis, November 3rd, 2011. So we're just shy of 3 years coming up on this. So let's set the stage here for how this thing came about. The title of the article was Hartford Finalizing Complicated Abington Land Deal. Prized Route 24 property will become park, home to Cultural Arts Center. And the article begins like this. Lowell, if you get a chance, will you bring my drink up from the end there? Hartford County government is nearing the end of what its chief lawyer calls the arduous process of acquiring 110 acres in the heart of the Route 24 corridor in Abington that will be used for a park and the home of a future cultural arts center. The gift of the property to the county from the trustee for the estate of the late Emily Bayless Graham, so this place is often referred to as the Graham property, has several strings attached, but it also means the citizens will have an asset that is worth between $14 million and $17 million, County Attorney Robert McCord said Tuesday. The last major undeveloped property between I-95 and the town of Bel Air, the Graham property, is on both sides of Route 24, just south of Wheel Road and the festival at Bel Air Shopping Center. Now, does everybody know where the festival is? All right, so if you're driving towards Bel Air on Route 24, once you pass Singer Road and there's some houses there, you hit Patch of Woods on both sides. On the right is designated to become a 69-acre park. On the left of 24 is designated to become the Cultural Arts Center. You might have seen they put signs up there. McCord said the county will use 69 acres between 924 and Route 24 for a passive, nature-oriented park, which was one of Mrs. Graham's desires for her property. Those who knew Mrs. Graham say she was interested in gardening and nature. This part of the property also contains a historic house. The county plans to lease the 41 acres west of Route 24 to an influential private group that has been raising money to build a community center for performing and fine arts, McCord said. Hartford County Executive David Craig announced the later arrangement for the Center for the Arts at the group's annual Dancing for the Arts Gala, September 24th. According to a news release the nonprofit organization issued in early October. Center for the Arts is a 501c3 nonprofit formed in 2005 with the goal of building a community cultural center. And I'm going to go through later and read parts of what the agreement is between the Arts Center and the county. Now we'll go on with the article. According to the Center for the Arts announcement, now this is very important, the site must be developed for construction of a cultural center by 2018 or the land will revert back to the foundation. So we're running under a time clock here, in other words. McCord said this characterization is basically true. Quote, they, Center for the Arts, would have 7 years to show substantial progress on a building, and at the discretion of the trustee, that's the trustee of the estate of Miss Graham, who's up in New Jersey, another 3 years to fulfill the requirement, unquote, he explained. McCord also said the same progress requirement applies to the 69 acres that would be used for what County Parks and Recreation Director Arden McClung has called Hartford's future, quote, Central Park, unquote. Craig has been an enthusiastic supporter of the Center of the Arts organization and its goal of developing a county cultural arts center. Leaders of the organization have said in the past they hope to secure funding for the cultural center project from a variety of sources, including private donations, corporate and foundation donations, and, surprise, from the government. McCord said Craig signed a memorandum of agreement, we're going to go through parts of that, with the Center for the Arts on October 27th, this is 2011, which delineates the organization and the county's respective responsibilities for the Graham property. The lawyer said this agreement, which, this is another important item, which was not submitted to either the Hartford County Council or to the County Board of Estimates, does not obligate the county to spend a specific amount of money to build the Cultural Arts Center. It does, however, state the county, quote, will contribute, unquote, once the two have agreed on the full cost of the project, which I will now tell you is $60 million. Quote, we have agreed to a portion of the cost of the project once it has been agreed upon, unquote, he said. In any case, McCord said the county intends to retain, this is another very important point. Now, this is going to come up later in this talk. In any case, McCord said the county intends to retain title to the land where the cultural center is developed. And he said he seriously doubts the property would be intensely developed even if the reversion clause kicked in. Quote, I think it would be unfair to say there would be condos, unquote, if the Cultural Arts Center isn't built on the site, he added. The Graham property is the largest tract of undeveloped land along Route 24 in the heart of what the county government has long considered its designated development district, commonly referred to as the, quote, development envelope, unquote. Though developers have coveted the tract for decades, Mrs. Graham was never interested in selling despite the property's high dollar value. Now this is really interesting. Miss Graham, whose family owned the Abington property for over 200 years, died a widow and had no children. She also left behind 3 wills, according to McCord, that outlined a variety of desires she had for the property. So we got competing wills here, okay? Most of them involving public use and preservation. So now we're in a mix-up with wills, the county government is, okay? McCord said the estate became the subject of court battles in New Jersey where Mrs. Graham died. The trustee for the estate, Thomas McGrath, was also Miss Graham's guardian during the final years of her life, McCord said. In 2010, the county became a party to the mediation that had been ordered to settle the competing claims against the estate. On July 19, 2010, an agreement was reached with the trustee that would allow the county to receive the property as a gift. McCord said McGrath agreed to a passive park, again that's on the right side of 24 as you're going up, and a cultural arts center are uses consistent with the late owner's desires for her land. Before that deal could be sealed, however, One potential claim had to be removed, which McCord said could have tied the estate up in protracted litigation. One of the wills had mentioned the Baltimore yearly meeting of the Religious Society of Friends. So it's the Quakers, in other words, okay? Which had been looking for a permanent home for its Hartford Friends School that operates in the county-owned Highland Community Center. Okay, so in 2010, at the bequest of Craig, the county council agreed to declare surplus 65 acres along Route 1 near Dublin, which will in turn be transferred to the Friends for a future school site. The county had acquired the site, known as the Michael Martin property, for a park at a cost of $1.8 million, according to county officials. McCord said the Friends will get the property free and thus drop any claim against the Graham estate. So in other words, what the county did to enhance this understanding was declare this other property they had bought for a park surplus, and then gave that to the Friends. So that's what occurred with that. Now I'm going to get into the memorandum of understanding between the two parties, which is the Cultural Arts Center and the county government. And some of this is boring, but it's got, we got to know what's in here because it's important, all right? Who has to pay what? This is important, So it states in this is the memorandum of understanding that I obtained from the county after some leg pulling. I have it here for anybody that wants to see it after the meeting. I'm now going to read parts of it. It says, now therefore the county and the center agree as follows. 1. Upon conveyance of the parcel by the charitable trust of the county, the center and the county shall cooperate to construct a facility that will serve as a center for the visual and performing arts, hereafter known as the project, on the parcel, with construction contingent upon appropriate financing being secured to be complete within 7 years of the transfer of title to the county. The parties agree that the project may be constructed in phases. This is another important point. And that the funding for the project will be adjusted to accommodate any agreed upon phase construction. Any county funding of the project will be contingent upon approval of the annual appropriation ordinance and the capital budget. 2, prior to beginning construction, financing for the project or the first phase of the project shall be secured through private donations raised in a capital campaign to be conducted by the center and through governmental grants, bond financing, and/or other governmental financing. Okay, so what we learn at this port is that there's supposed to be a capital campaign going on by the Cultural Arts Center. And we're going to get into that in a little bit. The center, this is what the memorandum states. The center shall raise 1/3 of the cost to be agreed upon. So in other words, initially, their share, they're supposed to raise $20 million for construction and equipping the project. The county shall provide 1/3 of such costs by bonds, grants, private donations, and/or other governmental funding. At no time shall the county contribution exceed 1/3 of the cost of the project. The final 1/3 of such costs shall be secured from the state of Maryland and/or the federal government through grants, bond issues, and/or other governmental funding. So it's going to be interesting to see who puts the bill forward from our delegation down in Annapolis to try and get this money. The county and the center shall work cooperatively in securing donations, grants, bonds, and other governmental funding from all available sources. However, the county cannot guarantee that such funding will in effect be made available. Okay, so then it gets into like if people procure money, what's going to happen to the interest and all that in the meantime? We can skip all that. All right, now you'll love this part. Number 3. Upon completion of the project, the county, as owner of the parcel, so, you know, we're getting a clear idea here that the county government's going to own this thing through and through, shall lease the premises to the center for $1 per year for an interim term of 30 years, with 2 additional renewal options of 15 years, each with rent to be agreed upon by the parties. The lease shall be subject to the approval of the county council and the Board of Estimates. Number 4, this is another interesting one. During the initial lease term, or the first 30 years, or any renewals thereof, the center shall have exclusive control of the artistic content of the activities, programs, and performances conducted on the leased premises, subject to the approval of the center's Board of Trustees. So in other words, if a group like ours wanted to rent a room there, the center is going to have the sole, even though taxpayers are paying for the majority of the project, they're going to have the right to say who uses the premises and who don't. The board will. Number 5, the county will cooperate with the center to expedite the planning and design of the building and improvements to be placed on the parcel. So already we're involving county money because, you know, now we're wrapped up in the architects, the planning, you know, the whole 9 yards. The county's already incurring cost. The construction of the project is anticipated to be a capital project of the county, and as such will require the Department of Public Works to supervise the design and construction of the facility. So now we're going to pay county employees to, over every phase of this, monitor what's going on. The center shall play an active role in the selection of consultants and the design of the facility to ensure that the facility functions at high standards for the programming and events of the anticipated project. Here's another nice one. Number 6, the county and the center shall share in the annual operating costs for the building. The county will assume all interior and exterior maintenance, and the center will pay all necessary costs to maintain the furnishings, fixtures, and performance-specific equipment and replacement. So once again, the taxpayers are going to be, you know, maintaining the property, the building, the whole 9 yards. The center will provide the county with a business plan of an annual audit of revenues and expenses prior to November 1st of each year in anticipation of the annual budget process of the county. All right, so let's speed up a little bit here because I know I'm taking a lot of time.
It's good info, Dave.
Number 8, the parties will cooperate in the development and promotion of the activities of the project and to make it accessible to all county residents. The use of the project by the county will be provided for in the lease, and activities will highlight the history of the Graham property shall be included. Okay, and then, you know, it goes on and then it finishes up. In witness thereof, whereof the parties hereto execute this memorandum of understanding on the date first above written, and I've got the signatures up there. Okay, so according to memorandum of understanding, the Cultural Arts Center is on the hook for $20 million to get this project off the ground, and the clock's running because if the building ain't near done by 2018, the county loses this, you know, $17 to $19 million parcel. So isn't this beautiful? So we move on now to an article in the Sun paper of May 12th of this year entitled, Hartford Center for the Arts Project Scales Back, Moves Forward. Leaders want to construct a $25 million facility to start, add more later. Okay, so wow, somebody must be having money problems here. All right, now we're going to scale back. So the article reads, conceptual drawings and a master plan for the new facility were produced by H3 Hardy Collaboration Architecture in 2010. The drawings envisioned a $60 million building with a water feature, amphitheater performance venues, and meeting, education, and art spaces. Since then, however, leaders of the Centers for the Arts decided to scale back the initial space, working towards a $25 million facility to start, Center for the Arts CEO Kathy Smith said Friday. So let's see here. $25 million. Well, now they're only on the hook for $8.33 to get this thing started, right? Initially. So, okay. Quote, we're scaling the project back and phasing it in, Smith explained. We're going back to H3 to have them scale back the design. The original plan they created was quoted at a $60 million project, unquote. The first phase, which center officials plan to have completed by the 2018 deadline, will include 3 new plans drawn up by H3 based on the $25 million budget, Smith said. She said the community will then give its input and have an opportunity to vote on the plans. That's an interesting statement. After the community vote, the construction phase of the project will begin, Smith said. If weather or other issues slow down progress of the planning and construction, the Center for the Arts can obtain up to a 3-year grace period after 2018 to complete the first phase, she said. Okay, I'll skip some of this. The Graham Estate property is in the heart of the county's main central highway corridor and is near the Abington branch of the Harford County Public Library. Based on a memorandum of understanding between the organization and Harford County government, the facility would be funded 1/3 by the Center for the Arts through private donation, foundations, grants, and fundraising, 1/3 from the county and 1/3 from state and federal grants, Smith said. Smith said eventually the Center for the Arts plans on expanding the space to fit the $60 million plan originally proposed by H3. Quote, the second phase would be an expansion of the project. Once we can show we've outgrown the new space, we will work on adding onto the building, unquote. All right, so I went to the Harford Arts Center website and I went through it. And on the page under endowment, it says, quote, coming soon, unquote. Then on the website, I went under capital campaign and the page says, quote, coming soon, okay? So, on the website it says, the Center for the Arts is moving steadily forward in its mission to build an arts center in Harford County. Please browse our website, and if you have any questions, please call Amanda Pugh, Grants and Development Coordinator, and then list the phone number and the extension number. So this prompted me to call and talk to Miss Pugh, and I asked her a question. I asked, how much money to date has the center raised towards the capital project? Her answer to me was, we have not yet started a capital campaign. This is 3 years after the signing of the Memorandum of Understanding. Okay? So I said to Miss Pugh, so just so we are clear, the Memorandum of Understanding was signed in 2011, and you have not yet raised any money for the project. Her response was, well, we have spent some money on soft items, such as contributing to the architectural planning, etc., And I'm assuming she meant by that too the signs they've placed along Route 24. So you know what's going on here, and this is probably what's going to happen, okay? All right? They're not going to meet their requirement. They've had 3 years and they've never even started raising any money. So when this comes up before the county council, I can tell you what the argument's going to be. You know, they can easily save the 69 acres on the Old Emerton Road side, because all we got to do there is put in a parking lot, and you know, we got to put in trails and some interpretive sides, and you know, we've met Miss Graham's request that be a park. So that's salvageable, okay? But what about the 41 acres on the left side as you're driving up 24? That's going to revert back to the Graham estate if this cultural arts center isn't started and under construction. So I can see now the socialists on the county council are going to say, we've got to fund this thing, because if we don't, the 41 acres is going to revert back to the Grahams. So we're going to be on the hook for the whole damn thing is what's going to come down the line here. So I wanted to talk just a little bit more about some of the items on their website, and I want, if you get a chance, just take a look at it. And it just blows my mind to study. A lot of the study is based on PRAC expansion. This whole study that's up there was done in 2007. And so it talks all about, we're going to be able to afford all this because of BRAC coming in. And as many of you know, Aberdeen's now cutting back, okay? But this is what all these numbers in this study are based on. So, a significant, well, one of the things they say here, and I unfortunately got my notes a little mixed up. Let's see here. Okay, I'm hopelessly screwed up. All right, but so one of the things here, a major resource that they have on this thing is they're projecting, they call non-ticketed events. A non-ticketed event is when they rent to a group and they bring people in, and then the center is able to sell them food and drinks and stuff and all like that. So they, in their business plan on the website, they projected up to 2017. They're projecting alone non-ticket attendance, okay? In other words, not events they put on, but that somebody like the Susquehanna Symphony may come and put on. They're projecting attendance of 278,000 people, okay? This is a county of 240,000 people, and just this one aspect, they're projecting they're going to pull in 278,000 just on this one aspect, okay? And the website states that they have consumers in excess of 400,000 people within a 45-mile radius. And this is what the website states. More than 10,000 of those people currently reside in Harford County, and the population associated with BRAC will significantly enhance that number beginning in earnest in 2009. So in other words, think about this. They're saying, based on population numbers and what they know about who gravitates towards the arts, so by their own admission on the website, they're saying this whole venture will only serve 4% of the citizens of Harford County. All right? So, the county currently, you know, these guys are running for office. They're acting like everything's fine. This county's currently $750 million in debt from unfunded liabilities. And these are obligations that county employees and teachers all entered in with good faith. And this is currently unfunded money for their pensions, their health care, that the citizens of Harford County owe $750 million. And yet somehow our county government believes that we're going to have $60 million to waste on this thing. That to me, clearly from reading all through the business plan and everything, it's not meant for the average of us to go see our kids participate in a little play or something. This is a big dollar thing. And, you know, I don't know about y'all, but I don't go, you know, I don't buy a whole block of play tickets, you know, 8 and 10 block at $60 and $70 a piece. You know, that's just out of my wheelhouse. So that's basically it, and I really wanted to have y'all give some thought to this issue. So thank you very much.
Even when Dave gets his notes mixed up, he's still awesome. Let's give him another hand. I wish I was that good when my notes were in order. I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. We've got a great speaker coming up about a very, very important topic, but at this time we do give a time for open mic, and we have a sign-up sheet in the back if you're unfamiliar with our organizational system here. And we do have one person that signed up for open mic, and what we also want to do at this time is let you know that this is your chance to be a part of Campaign for Liberty and be a part of the Liberty community, and to be a part of waking up other citizens to the fact of what's going on with our county. When you just look at the last 2 minutes of what Dave said, it's really serious. It's really a problem. And when you have politicians with these grandiose ideas to serve, like you said, 4% of the population, but spend all the population's money that they don't have, okay? When people can't afford to even live in the county, people want to move out of Maryland. If you've seen the statistics lately, it's insane. Crack was never what it was touted to be. Go ahead, Dave.
A fact that I had in my notes I didn't bring out, that with their business plan, even with the grandiose numbers that they're putting out, all their projections, it never meets expenses. The best year on this thing, okay, is $372,000 in the hole on the best year. So who's going to absorb this? You know, and that's even with the grandiose numbers they're talking about. It's going to fall upon the county government and the citizens of this county to support this white elephant, the same way that the citizens in Baltimore City are laying out millions of dollars a year for a white elephant hotel.
Well, and to compete with the fire halls and the Bellissimos and wherever else that hosts lunches and breakfasts and dinners and receptions and stuff like that. I mean, it's like there's plenty of private places that people can do that, and there's more private places being built by even Friends of Campaign for Liberty. I know Hartford Vineyard is building a huge 5,000 square foot. It's just going to be a really nice public place where you can also have writing receptions and all kinds of stuff at the Vineyard. I mean, anyway, if you can't afford it, you just can't do it, right? How about in your family? Do you build another wing onto your house when you're already up to here in debt? If you can't afford it, you just can't do it. Just period. Anyway, speaking of can't afford it, anyway, we are going to pass around. We have nice little fish bowls that we're going to pass around. There's only about a third of the people here, so we're going to pass them each 3 times. Just kidding. Just kidding, but we asked you to give generously to help us cover the room cost tonight. And our first open mic speaker and our last. This is a first. It's the first and the last. So you get 3.5 minutes, Jeff. No, I'm just kidding. Come on, Jeff Gaylor.
Here, here.
Thank you. I won't need all 3.5 minutes, because coming on the tail end of this, talking about places in Hartford County to have events, and talking about Dave for people asking for $60 for this, I just came up to let you know that I'm having a fundraiser. I think anybody that hasn't been here, unless it's your first meeting, I do see some new faces. Everyone pretty much knows I'm running for sheriff. I'm on the Republican side, although this is nonpartisan. I'm on the Republican side of the ticket. I'm running for sheriff. We're having our last fundraiser this Friday night at the Happy Grace Community Center. Right now we're around 450 people, so it will be a big event. We have Governor Ehrlich coming, but we can go up to 600, so happy to have anyone else that wants to join us. I have tickets. I know Mike has some tickets with him tonight over here. Just see me sitting back here if you're interested in coming. If you want to bring some friends, let us know. We'll work into the last minute. So thank you for your time.
All right, thanks, Jeff.
Congratulations. Thank you.
So what day is that again, Jeff?
Friday.
Friday.
Saturday Grace Community Center at 6:30.
Catered by Fast Eddie's.
Dinner by Fast Eddie.
Yes, sir. Catered by Fast Eddie's. All right. And thank you, Vicki and Sharon and Dave. Thank you very much for passing around the fish bowls or the pretzel barrels or whatever they happen to be, whatever hits your table. Our last speaker of the evening is Vicki.
I have a quick announcement.
Yes.
And I forgot about this, sorry. Folks, I just want to let you know that put on your Christmas calendars for December 13th, an awesome party. Last year, we helped Maryland Liberty PAC host a Christmas party. Was it a great time, guys, for the folks who was there? The food was great. The speakers were great. We had a great time. We had signature martinis. It was great. We had such great attendance that this year we've rented a hall that can hold 350 people. Now, for $25, you can come to a Christmas party, hang out with awesome patriots and Liberty people. Dan Bongino will be speaking, and I can't say now, but we are working on a really big name Liberty person to come and speak. We're hoping we can get him or her, I'm not going to say who, but we know we have Dan Bongino, and then we're working on a second really big name. If you buy your tickets now, you get them for $25. They're going to go up to $35. Where can you get tenderloin sandwiches, a martini, awesome appetizers, shrimp, and finger foods, great stuff for $25, a Christmas party, and Dan Bongino to boot. Go to marylandliberty.org under events, and you can purchase your ticket there. All right?
Thank you.
We'll all be there. Lowell will be there.
We'll be there. I'll do some magic. Just ask me for some magic. You mean our extra speakers, our special speaker is going to be bigger than Dave Pridgeon?
That's awesome.
Is it going to be bigger than Scott DeLong?
Well, they're not speaking.
Bigger than Eric Jackson?
Bigger than. I do want to say something.
Yeah.
Attendance at the BSO is 350,000 people a year. And they're saying that the Hartford.
We're going to have tours.
Yeah.
That'll happen. And at those prices. That's a great price. Yes.
Do we have any new folks? So we have giveaways for our new folks?
Oh, yeah. Do we have giveaways for the new folks, Sharon? How many people are here brand new? You're here. You're newer in the corner, right? Is this your first meeting? Hi, welcome. You're a copious note taker. Are you a reporter?
I am not.
Oh, okay. Are you with the county?
I am not.
Oh, okay. We're glad you're here. Do we have a giveaway for brand new people? Sharon, did we do that today? Okay, the winner is this, the gift is this pen, and I'm going to throw it right. We'll do it at the end if we've got that right. Okay, we normally have it during this time. Our next speaker is going to talk about something very, very important. It's a tragedy and a travesty that is being foisted upon the American public because on American school children. Our speaker is Norman Taylor. I haven't met Norman. Norman, you are here? Okay, excellent. That's a really good start that he's here. And he's going to be talking about Common Core. I don't have a good introduction for you, Norman, but I'm going to let you self-introduce yourself, and let's give Norman Taylor a big hand.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Norman Taylor, and I've been a resident of Hartford County for 11 years. Something very near and dear to my heart has been education. Education, I believe, is very important because it has to do with our most precious possessions, our children. Our children are our future. And I believe that if we are going to change Hartford County, the state of Maryland, and the United States and get us back to where our founding fathers were at, we've got to start with our children, our youth. A friend of mine who also will mention, Rick Rambo, has sat down and helped me out a lot, to understand, the processes when it comes to education. And I was afforded the opportunity to help with Michael Perrone this past election and the one coming up now. I'm going to be helping him out very, very dedicated man. And what I'm here to do is to shed some light on how did we get to this point? Is Common Core something that's really brand new? And the answer is, by the end of this presentation, you'll see no. Okay, they are here for our children, and not only our children, but our very own personal rights. And I've also worked with Ann Miller, who's down in Baltimore County, and we have a group on Facebook, and it's called Stop Common Core in Maryland. And I've actually branched out now to a national level, Rachel Cohen, who is Stop Common Core in America. Because I'm hoping that I can inspire some people to take a stand for our children, our grandchildren, our community. Because I don't want to see it stop here in Hartford County. I want to see it stop everywhere in the United States. With that being said, I'm going to go on into our presentation. I'd like to look for a few moments here at the origins of the Common Core state standards. Okay, the Common Core State Standards Initiative, it was conceived back in the year of 2008. And it was released to the nation in 2009. And it actually came in under the Race to the Top funding. That's how they started it. And so you can see, how did the creators of the Common Core roll out this plan to our nation? Let's get a little ahead of myself. Through the $4.3 billion that was allowed to the Race to the Top stimulus funding. So we paid for this. And in 2010, the federal government presented and they incentivized the states for who would adopt these standards. Now, please keep in mind that this was at a time when our economy was weak. So naturally, the politicians were going to do their very best to try and bump up their economy. And they're selling out our children and our country. We look here. States were given, I'm going to just walk away, I'm assuming everyone can still hear me. States were given the deadline to sign on and make a commitment to these standards. Well, as of January 19, 2010, they had to adopt these standards. And some people say, okay, well, big deal. But, see, this was actually before the final draft was approved, which was June 2nd, 2010. So they had to sign up, states were signing up for something they knew nothing about. How was it going to be implemented? How was it going to affect them? So we can see that it was, and also the Common Core standards were released after the Race to the Top applications were due. So as I said earlier, to reiterate, it had states adopting something they knew nothing about. You know, I mean, I attended some of those local school meetings, and I asked the teachers, you know, are we teaching at the college level to Common Core? And as of last year, the answer was no. And the scary fact is, in Hartford County, please bear in mind that Common Core is here, it's in full effect, and the only thing that we're lacking is the computers for the park assessment testing, which we'll discuss in a few moments. Now, Illinois, Mississippi, and Oklahoma, they actually had to bypass their state constitution with emergency legislation so they could get this passed through and get the money. So now let us look at where did these rigorous standards come from? The National Governors Association and the Council of Chief School State Officers. They led the development of these standards. Now bear in mind, they got them from a grant from the Bill Gates Foundation, which was over $200 million. Now not only did they get money there, they got it from other corporate people such as ExxonMobil. And these two groups, this is the important part I want everybody to look at for a moment. They're professional trade organizations in the private sector, and they have no legislative authority whatsoever. So they're not even educators, and they're developing curriculums, standards that are going to affect our children, going to affect us. So now we have these two trade organizations. They own the copyright to CCSS. And the copyright prevents us, educators, parents, it prevents us from any modification or substitution. You have to teach what they tell you, and it is, hate to borrow the cliche term, it is teaching to a test. The mandates tell the teachers that they have to teach everything there. They have to teach the full curriculum. There is no autonomy. You know, I mean, I've never been a teacher, but the thing is trying to teach a broad learning range of individual students. The students are individuals, contrary to what they want us to believe now. We're not all equal. Some learn certain subject matter faster than others. And the teachers can add up to 15% of their material. Add. They can't pull out what they say isn't sufficient. Now, the developers, do they really believe that these standards are preparing our students for college? Well, let me ask you a question. How many of us have sat here and aspired to be very minimal in our achievements? Okay. So son better put his hand down. but I mean, on a serious note, I mean, no one aspires for minimal standards. We all dream big.
Obama does.
Yeah, I was going to say no.
But we look here, and at a 2010 meeting, Massachusetts Board of Elementary and Secondary Education, Professor Jason Zimba, now he was the lead developer in this Common Core mess, and it is a mess. He dealt with the math standards, and this is exactly what he says. For the colleges most kids go to, but not for the colleges that most parents aspire, and I'll throw this in, pay for. And he added that the standards are not for selective colleges. It's public information. Many people, the Dean of Education at Stanford has said that it's not, you know, students won't be able to get in with the amount of math that they're going to be teaching. I mean, we're going to break down also and look at the ELA standards and the mathematics standards. So I ask, are these standards really that rigorous? With over half of the states we got out here now questioning, what did we get ourselves into? You know, I think that, you know, I mean, my mom used to always tell me, where there's smoke, there's fire. I think we got a little more than smoke now. We got a lot of states that are opting out of the Common Core. They're putting things to referendum. And I mean, I just want to know, when are we going to stand up? Now, I had the opportunity to be able to go down to Family Research Council and see a meeting this past summer, and it was with Dr. Sandra Stotsky, who we'll talk about here shortly. And she was one of the 2 educators on the validation committee. That's pretty scary when they believe they had 25 to 30 people on the validation committee. And in her words, there were 4 major groups that were excluded from the development of the Common Core. Parents. Believe it or not, parents, we have a right to know what our children are being taught. After all, they are our children. They are our children, and we know what is best. The second group is the teachers. The teachers were not asked at all. And it's obvious by only having 2 post-secondary education people representing. State legislators weren't asked. They were pretty much forced and told, if you want money, this is what you need to do. And finally, the local school board officials. So now the state governors and the officials accepted these standards, yet they're placing the financial burden on the local jurisdictions. See, O'Malley and them accepted this, but yet when it comes to the computers for the required testing, guess who's going to pay for that in Hartford County? You and me. Why am I going to pay for something that I really don't support? That's anti-constitutional, is against your 10th Amendment, and due to the fact that Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation funded this, here's another really unique point. This is not available to the public. They did an end around on the Public Information Act. Why? Is it not available? Because it's not subject to the Freedom of Information Act. Now, what facts did they cover up? You know, some people may say, okay, well, you can't find out everything about everything. But I say when it comes to our children, once again, I keep hammering that home, it's my child. Who was chosen to develop these standards? Who actually developed them, other than very few people that are outspoken and really believe in this? Who chose the individuals? Why were these people chosen to develop these rigorous standards? And what were they paid? What is their financial, what is their compensation? They are not internationally benchmarked. Nowhere, I looked at the Common Core website, I looked at the websites that were for Common Core and against, and nowhere is there any data that suggests we have hardcore testing. Our children are guinea pigs. There's no research whatsoever to show that what they have developed is truly going to work. And finally, these standards are not rigorous. They're not rigorous whatsoever, as we're going to see here very shortly. No one spoke to college educators to see what does college readiness really mean. You know, we live in an age of technology. And sometimes, you know, my children, they turn around and they say that technology is not all bad. I know it's not all bad, but you know, we need to be able to turn around and make that switch. And the standards are going to keep going higher and higher. You know, we know now it's mandatory for you to be successful, you need to have a college education. These standards are federally led, and as I said earlier, not only do they violate the 10th Amendment, but it's also a violation of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act. Now, once again, giving credit where it was due, according to Dr. Sandra Stotsky, she said that there were missing standards in the area of the English language arts. She felt so strongly, this lady refused to sign off and resigned from the validation committee. Now, what were the missing standards in the English language arts? Number one, we have no history of the English language. None whatsoever. The authors of the ancient world, she felt, were very important because this would teach analytical thinking. They screamed that we are going to teach children how to think outside the box. That's why we're going to take a typical two-step math process and turn it into a 40-step process. And she also said that British literature was excluded except from Shakespeare. Question is what are our children going to read? You know, our children are going to turn away from classic literature. And some people, I mean, I was not an English, by any stretch of imagination, was not an English expert.
My wife did the English and I did the mathematics. But when it comes to literature, you still have to have an appreciation of your history, culture. And finally, Dr. Stotsky said in her opinion that these were very poorly written standards. Common Core stresses writing over reading. Now, according to Dr. Stotsky, she said the opposite. She said, very good writers are exceptional readers. Common Core, it claims to develop the analytical thinking, but let's stop for a moment and look. This is impossible, according to Dr. Stotsky, because our literary text, our classic literature, Treasure Island and all that, by the time they reach high school, it gets cut out by 70% in order to allow for technical and informational material. The reduction of the literary works is going to harm our children. Once again, my other big thing is, I don't know how many have children here in this room. Okay? How many of your children require batteries and oil changes like robots? That's good. Our children are human beings. They have emotions. They have feelings. So let's not raise a generation of robots. Let's raise a generation of educated, compassionate, well-thinking individuals. Now, she went on to also state that, they're applying these standards. They're trying to take one set of standards, which to me shows just how lazy they are. If it works for this subject, it works for all subjects. It's just like if I can teach you calculus this way, we can all learn it that way. And if you don't, oh well. Now, what's wrong with applying the ELA standards to history? Historical texts require three things: contextualization, sourcing, and corroboration. ELA standards do not do that, according to Dr. Stotsky. And we got a problem now where history teachers are starting to say, well, I can't teach history this way. So what are we going to have? English teachers teaching history? Now we go on to another gentleman, Professor James Milgram. He's a professor of mathematics at Stanford University. And he was the other of the only two educators on the development of the Common Core curriculum. And he was the only content expert in mathematics. And all those other people, no one was there to develop. He was there to validate it, not develop it. Professor Milgram also found deficiencies in the math standards. And this is what some of them include. They delay the standard algorithms for multiplication and division. When I was at Joppatown Elementary School last year, I was told that multiplication facts, you would only be required to know up to the tens table by the end of 5th grade.
What?
Now, that's what I was told by their math specialists. And I went ahead and I said, I remember learning it in 2nd grade. I remember writing down the multiplication facts. I remember repeating the multiplication facts and getting drilled by a lady, and I must not be that old because I can still remember her name, Miss Denise Stukursky. Furthermore, they will no longer be teaching prime factorization.
What?
And no standards are going to be in place for full trigonometry, pre-calc, or calculus. Now, just out of curiosity, how many people do we have here in the science technology field? Okay, and I myself. Trigonometry, pre-calc, calculus, all these are required at the collegiate level. What happens when we don't know the full subject matter? Math is very, very concrete. You're either right or you're wrong. And all they're going to be delaying the completion of Algebra 1 until the 9th grade. Now, some of us are sitting there saying, thank God. But, you know, if we look at it, by the end of 5th grade, the material that will be covered in arithmetic and in algebra and Common Core standards is going to be more than a year behind the early grade expectations in most of the high-achieving countries. And really, if you look, what do we always hear? Oh, we're not doing as well as this country or that country. We got to catch up to them. Well, instead of catching up, ladies and gentlemen, we're reverting backwards. We're going backwards. By the end of 7th grade, these standards are going to be roughly 2 years behind. I don't know about you, but this is pretty scary to me. To look that we're going to be 2 years behind and we haven't even gotten into high school yet. So now consequently, in many of the high-achieving countries, students are either expected to complete the standard calculus course, or they're at least required to finish such a course to graduate from high school. Over 90% of the population typically are high school graduates. And then yet, we look here, much of the material in Algebra 1 and the first semester of geometry is covered in our middle school years, grade 6, grade 7, and grade 8. And by the end of 9th grade, most students will have finished all of Algebra 1 and almost all of the Algebra 2 content and geometry expectations, including proofs, all at a more sophisticated level than we expect. You know, it's really, I mean, I get passionate over this because I look at our children and I tell my son, whom we opted to homeschool, I said, son, the most important, most powerful weapon you can have is your mind and to think for yourself. Don't give me, this is what the answer is. Do you understand why? And we're stripping our young people of the ability to think. In comparison to other countries, which are high achievers, this is what Common Core will cover. All of Algebra 1, most, but it won't cover the full geometry curriculum. It'll cover only half of Algebra 2. Now, so we didn't even get into pre-calculus, trigonometry, or calculus. Should you trust the federal government to decide what's best for your children's education? I think between No Child Left Behind and some of the other stuff, we really shouldn't be. Now why do I say this? Because, and then some people will say to me, okay, well, what evidence do you have to show that the federal government, you can't trust them to run education? According to the Cato Institute, since the federal government, it's been roughly 40 years that they've been involved with public education. They've had a flat line on test results. Test results have pretty much stayed stagnant over the past 40 years. And that is even with a 300% inflation with adjusted increase for the federal per pupil spending. So we're spending all this money on kids and we're not getting any more results. You know, it's frustrating. You know, I mean, really, we don't really need Common Core. I think we need to revert back to something our moms and dads taught us. Just called common sense. You know, we need to treat our children like humans and not robots. So here we can see 5 out of 30 of the members on the validation committee did not sign up for that. And so that equates to 16 2/3%. And some people say, it's only 16%. Well, then I'll turn around and ask them, well, that's not that much. Can I make the sales tax 16 2/3%? Oh, no, that's heavy. Okay, well, if it's heavy enough for your wallet, it should be heavy enough for our children. Now, let's look at this one. This is the data mining. That, you know, they turn around and tell you that, oh, all it is we're trying to teach your kids. I've done a lot of research, and research here that I'm going to try and speed up and show you is they're trying to come into our house. They're trying to come into your home. It's no longer do they just want to indoctrinate your children. They want to know everything about you. Can we implement Common Core standards without the privacy invasion? The answer is no. States, they also had to accept the PARC or the SBAC testing in order to receive grants. So what they did to them was they said to them, okay, look guys, you accept the Common Core standards and we're going to give you money for education. Then all of a sudden it was kind of like, but you know what? Oh yeah, we forgot to tell you. Now you've got to accept the testing. And then this is some of the testing that they want to do to our children. The U.S. Department of Education, they funded multiple initiatives. And what they're trying to do is encourage interstate, interagency data sharing. And I believe I got 3 or 4 of these here that are popular now. Workforce Data Quality Initiative. They tell you they want to find out how to create a quality workforce. How do you create a quality workforce is you instill pride, you instill work ethic, and you teach the young people. And you teach them respect. And they'll be fine. I promise you'll have a quality workforce at those points. And naturally, we got the Common Core, we want to have common education standards all across. It sounds like it's a really good idea. If I leave Joppatown and I move off to Ohio, I should be able to hit the ground running and not fall behind. So on the surface, they make it sound really, really good. But then they talk about the assessment interprobability framework, which is all of the testing that they want to do. And it's no longer just taking a test. I mean, you got to fill out 3 pages of personal information just to be able to take the test. Now they got over 400 data points, and this is what's going to be scary. At least to me it was scary. I didn't realize this much until I really started digging into the data mining. Okay, they want to know student test scores. Not too bad. Now we want to know the health history of the student. What does that got to do? Whether my son has asthma, whether he has diabetes, what does that have to do? Or your son, or your daughter? What does that do with how well they're going to achieve? Total family income. They're starting to look at that now. You know, I mean, they put those things there, and they always say it's optional. They would know your sources of income. And naturally, everybody sits down and says, you know, what does your daddy do for a living? My dad's a sheriff. Or, you know, my dad works for an engineering firm. Or my dad works here, my mom works there. But this is stuff that, once it is fully implemented, they will have to answer. I mean, I don't sit around, personally, I don't sit around and discuss with my children how much we're making this year and where I work at. Okay, and actually, typical the address. Now we got to slow it down. We don't want to, you know, we don't want to trick you guys. The bus stop number and the times of the bus stops. To me, it starts to get a little scary. We're starting to do a lot of tracking every move. Social Security number. Now, in this day of information technology, you know, I mean, I'm very, very weary on how I give my number out Social Security wise. And I believe, you know, young people should too. Parent communication method. How do you get in touch with your child? Cell phone? Oh, what's the cell phone numbers? It's just more government invasion. And then this is a real big one. School food service participation. You know, I mean, you ask my wife and she'll tell you, the way to my heart is through my stomach. And if you can cook, bingo, you got my attention. You can sell me something if you knock on the door and bring a meal. But with this, you turn around and you look. And I have a case study here, which I'm going to share in a moment. But if I may sidestep for one moment, there was a gentleman in our neighborhood who was experiencing a job loss. And he tried to get the sports fee waived for his child. He wanted to get it delayed. And going round and around, they said that they couldn't, they couldn't do it. They said, first question, is your child in our free or reduced meal program? The man had worked all his life, lost his job, and he had only said, I see that the swimming fee for my child is going to be due next week. Can I have a 2-week extension and I'll pay you? They said, we don't have a waiver. He said, no, ma'am, I don't want a waiver. I want an extension so my child can participate. And they were like, well, are you part of the free and reduced meal program? What does that have to do with the price of tea in China? The man's asking for an extension. But here we go. And then they want to know peer rating data. How do your peers see you? They're going as far as they want to see baptismal certificates for life insurance policy, health insurance coverage, and disciplinary history. Eye color, hair color. Now, how are these databases funded? The money came from the stimulus bill a few years ago. And all the states, now here's once again, this kind of gets scary. This common, everything is common, everything is alike. All the databases got to be exactly alike. Why? Because they want to make it easier to share data from state to state, all the way up to the national level. And the data collection, it's going to come mostly from assessment testing. The information will be made available to your federal government. Now this is why I said this was a biggie. It's a case study that Hubert Rushford Elementary School this past year in Cuba, New York, they tried to implement a program because all of our children are irresponsible, and guess what? They lose money, they lose lunch cards. So I got a great idea. Let's have them use a finger pad, which is basically taking a fingerprint. And all of a sudden, parents revolted. They woke up. But see, to me, that's we've come an awful long way to not wake up. And I can go through some of this. So what is the federal government's stance on data mining? Arnie Duncan said, we want to be able to track little Johnny from preschool to the workforce. We want to know everything that he does during those years. Don't you think that's an invasion? I mean, those are his exact words. That's his quote. There's no interpretation in there. The federal government has even relaxed privacy rules. They're spending more of our money, $500 million in direct grants to states in order to build longitudinal databases. The Family Education Rights and Privacy Act, it no longer can protect us at the level that it used to do. The extension of Common Core allows the districts to share students' personal information. Why? Because it furthers what they call educational goals. What does my child's hair color have to do with your goals? Now, how do we get to these Common Core standards? Because remember earlier I said, ladies and gentlemen, Common Core standards aren't new. Now, this is kind of scary. Let's take a moment and look at this and not just listen to me tell it to you. Karl Marx, we all knew who Karl Marx was. He was a communist. The 10th plank of the Communist Manifesto read, free education for all children in public schools. Sounds good. Abolition of children's factory labor in the present form. Sounds good. But look at this last sentence. Combination of education with industrial production. We keep talking about college readiness. But when Jason Zimba said this was only going to be meant for 2-year colleges, why are we selling our children short? Why are we not having our children go to College Park, Hopkins? Why do we need them? I know naturally a lot of us as parents say, well, it saves us money. But if they can achieve at the level of Stanford, Harvard, why not have them go right there? John Dewey was a progressive educator, and he fought for a standardized curriculum. Why? Because he wanted to prevent students, having one student, from being superior to others. He envisioned a workforce with people who had politically and socially correct attitudes, who would respond to orders without question. Wow. I only know 2 people that I ever responded that way to, and that was my mom and my dad. Now, most recently, back during the Clinton years, I believe it was, they said, well, within a week of when Bill Clinton was elected president, Mark Tucker, who was CEO of the National Center on Education and the Economy, he wrote an 18-page letter to Hillary Clinton. Why? Because he wanted to tell her how education should be nationalized. I don't know. History always told me we had lower government here at the county level, the state, and the national. We're throwing around this term nationalized, I don't know, like it's nothing. And I know a question, at least I had, was why would Bill Gates pour all his money into this Common Core? Very easy. Computers that will be used for the testing, they're going to be using Microsoft. So Bill Gates, he's going to get his money back if we do not stand up for our children and end this thing called Common Core. What can we do to stop this madness? Because that's exactly what this is. Parents, we got to educate ourselves. Grandparents, aunts, uncles, just people that are concerned. We got to educate ourselves. We have to have more meetings like this. And we have to stand up and we have to educate each other. We got to reach out to our politicians. We got to let them know, if you don't look out for my child, I won't look out for you come that next election. We need to get involved in PTA meetings. We need to tell the teachers' unions enough is enough.
Yes.
We need to go out into the school board. You know, I really believe that, I believe there's more than one Rick Rambo out there in the world when it comes to the Board of Education. I believe that you got a lot of good people out there that really care and want to see things go back to where they should be. And by going back, I don't mean falling behind the high-achieving countries. I mean by going back to what worked and made America what it was. And you need to lobby. Common Core, Stop Common Core in Maryland is a group that I'm involved with on Facebook. We do a lot of meetings. Ann Miller is very, very busy, and she's also part of the Examiner. Family Research Councils down in D.C. They turn around and work very closely with Homeschool Legal Defense Association. And for me, you know, we opted to homeschool. We opted to homeschool my son. And you're like, okay, well, wait a minute. What about going out to the PTA? As long as my tax dollars go into this system, I'm going to be there and I'm going to make my voice known. And I ask every one of you to do the same. But I came across a statistic for Harford County that we spend in tax dollars $14,000 per student per year. Now, for every child that is not part of the system, they lose $14,000. So to me, if you're not going to take a parent, a voter, a concerned citizen, and if you're not going to spend my money the way I want it spent, because you work for me, I don't work for you, then I'll take my money back. And they lose $14,000 in Harford County. I thank you all very much, and I thank Ms. Vicky for having me out tonight.
I just have a comment.
I don't understand all this education stuff, because, you know, when I went to school, I went to St. Stephen's down Bradshaw Road, and all through grade school, I had 60, 65 people in a class, got out before Memorial Day, didn't go to school till after Labor Day, and by all rights, I should be illiterate based on what people think now. Now, I want to tell you something. You go up to the museum at West Point, all right, and you're looking at the case, and there's a scrawled, scribbled letter in cursive right there, all right? And it says Benteen. It's for Major Benteen. Benteen, come quick, large force, bring packs. And he's talking about ammunition packs. And he scrawls his name, Custer. And then it says, P.S., bring packs. And I'm standing there, and next to it, I'm seeing a headdress, you know, a sitting bull. And I'm just, when I'm reading that note, I'm thinking to myself of how the fur was flying at that moment. And then the cursor right in Custer, he couldn't even remember that he had already said bring packs. And it breaks my heart to think there's going to be kids that aren't going to be able to read that note, and it's got to have it interpreted for them. And also think about, suppose you got within your family, you know, that's been handed down through the generations. Letters from that your ancestor wrote from the Civil War that was involved in different battles, or World War I or World War II. Letters they wrote home. We're going to be in a place 25 years from now where a family member is going to be running around trying to find somebody that writes cursive so they can see what their ancestor went through. And I just think this is a horrible state of affairs myself.
Well, I'd like to make a comment on that, Dave. Isn't that part of what government control of education wants to do? There is a deliberate, and this is not a conspiracy theory, folks. This is, I mean, the left has been infiltrating the education industry for the last 100 years, starting with John Dewey all the way on up. And part of the way they control society and indoctrinate children is by divorcing them from their culture. And also what frightens me is divorcing them from their parents. When I have to go to a school administrator and ask permission to see my child or take my child out, there's a problem there. Last year I needed to take my son to an event rather than have him go on the bus. And I had to send in a handwritten note requesting the principal allow this. And when I called the secretary, she told me that the principal had not yet approved it. And I told her I was not asking for approval. I was merely giving him the courtesy of letting him know that this parent is in control of her child. She was just kind of caught in the middle of the policy. I didn't have to, you know, I really didn't want to give her a hard time. But as parents, we have to stop this mindset that we have to listen to them, that we have to follow their rules and their policies when it comes to our children. Now, a certain amount of authority must be in place so schools can be run efficiently. But we have got to take these schools back. I sit on the Family Life Education Committee, which is basically the sex education committee, and I got on it for very specific reasons. You would not believe the stuff that they would like to have your children looking at. And if you want to know what children in Harford County are going to be looking at, I want you to go at home tonight. I want you to Google massresistance.com, and you can see the kind of filth that the children in Massachusetts have to put up with because of the policies and legislation that have been passed in that state. I wouldn't speak of it in the next company, and that's coming here to Harford County. 10 years, maybe less. Anyway, I'm glad my kid's out of school.
Yes, sir.
I thought John Dewey's quote was very apropos. You know, they want people that will take orders and be controlled. When you think about it, what is the last thing that the state wants? The last thing the state wants is someone who's a critical thinking person and who asks questions. What is in the interest of the state? What is in the interest of the state is to have someone who is easily controlled, who is indoctrinated, and who is acquiescent, and who will be a good drone. Vladimir Lenin said, "Give me a child for 4 years, and the seed that I plant will never be uprooted." Something else that came across me, how many people here have kids in college? When school was starting up, I saw the sun, and it said, Baltimore City has their graduates that enter university. Over 40% of them are taking remedial classes. Now, the state of Maryland spends 60% of its budget on education. And here we have kids, over 40% of the kids, taking remedial classes for which they get no credit. Now, my daughter's in college. She came home with a book bill of like $800. What's happening is these kids are coming out of these high schools and they're not educated. They're taking these remedial classes and they're learning things in college that they should have learned in high school. And you have a federal government that's now running the student loan business. So you have these children that are spending extra time in college, taking extra classes that they should have already known, running up their bill, and when they get out of college, they got a mortgage hanging around their neck of $100,000 before they've earned one nickel. The education industry is a racket. They are not interested in educating their children. They are interested in making compliant drones that will do as they're told without question.
And the education industry is just that. It is an industry, and their first priority is not our children, people. You need to understand that. And that comes from the mouth of the president of the teachers organization. I can't remember his name now, but he said, when children and their parents are paying my salary, then they'll be my priority. Right now, teachers are my priority, and the system is his priority. The education industry is just that. Your children, our children, are not their priority. Sorry, teachers, but it's the way it is.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, I had closing remarks, so you guys did a better job than I did anyway, so good for you guys.
You got us all hot and bothered.
Thank you, Dave, for starting that up, too. We greatly appreciate all the work. There was a lot of work that went into that. Let's just give him one more round of applause. We do this every fourth Tuesday. In October, our next meeting is October 28th. That's the fourth Tuesday. It's the furthest to the end of the month that it can possibly be, since the first is a Wednesday. So October 28th is our next meeting. We're going to have another list of phenomenal speakers on all kinds of topics. Sometimes it's more statewide, sometimes it's national issues. We run the gamut of what's current and what needs to be talked about. So we appreciate you being here. Please come back again. Jeff, you want to...
You just maybe think about it. By the time the next meeting rolls around, early voting will have started.
That's true.
So if anyone, in the room, whether you're voting Republican, Democrat, whoever you're voting for, please get people out to vote. We're a month away.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. Thanks.